Hello and welcome to the second season of Agri-History Revisited. In this episode, we'll talk about different plants and animals I covered in the previous domestication series, and revisit them. For our first episode, we'll cover the domestication of cattle. To that end, we'll be referencing a paper by Dr. Emily Jane McTavish of the University of Texas at Austin. Cattle were domesticated twice from two populations of auroch. These are the Taurus cattle and the Indicus cattle. The Taurus cattle make up the Middle Eastern, European, and parts of the Asian lineages of cattle. The Indicus lineage makes up the lineage of most of the Asian and parts of the African cattle. Based on current evidence, the Tauran lineage were first domesticated from Middle Eastern aurochs, with later additions of wild auroch from Europe. The Indicus lineage was likely domesticated in the Indian subcontinent, with both events happening between 7,000 and 10,000 years ago. It was already differentiating subspecies within the wild auroch prior to its extinction, indicating some form of divergence had occurred approximately 200,000 years ago. Based on current evidence, the auroch and the domesticated cow coexisted in Europe until 1627, when the last of that species died off. The sheer amount of genetic divergence between the Middle Eastern and the European cattle is likely due to the fact of continuous interbreeding between both aurochs and regular cattle. European cattle are largely of the Taurus lineage. Those in India are derived from the Indicus lineage. The Indicus region cattle are more feed stress and water stress tolerant, as well as being more tropically adapted, whilst the Taurus lineage have been subjected to more intensive selection for milk and meat production, as well as docility and ease of handling. Both lineages have been utilized in the breeding of the different varieties of cattle found in Africa. Although there is possibility of a third independent domestication within African cattle, it is hotly contested. What is confirmed, however, is that wild aurochs from Africa were incorporated into the lineages of the African gene pool of cattle. Several of the southern European and African wild auroch also contained traits similar to that of the Indicus lineage. The first lines of cattle brought to the Americas were brought by Christopher Columbus and are of Portuguese and Spanish descent. As a result, they likely shared ancestry with North African cattle, as both groups share a common ancestor that's relatively recent. The cattle found in the West Indies and Brazil also seem to show similar genotypes. Dr. McTavish hopes to figure out how much of each genetic lineage played a role in the breeding of modern New World cattle, and here are the results. When comparing the Indicus and the Taurus lineages of cattle, the highest level of genetic diversity, the average heterozygosity within breeds range about 15%, so each individual on average differs by 15% genetically speaking. Within the Taurus lineage, the average heterozygosity was 27%. It is 16% within the Indicus lineage. Across New World cattle, the average heterozygosity is 28%. The researchers were able to recapitulate the data obtained from hybrids of known origin, such as the Santa Gertrudis, which is a Brahman shorthorn crossbreed, the former being an Indicus lineage, the latter being a Taurus lineage. They're also able to recreate the genetic data for the Hereford, Shorthorn, and Brahman hybrid known as the Beefmaster, indicating that the methods they used in genetic testing were useful and are likely to be accurate. Utilizing mutation rates and other genetic testing mechanisms, it is likely that the admixture between the Southern European cattle of Taurus origin and African cattle occurred during the Moorish invasion between the 8th and 13th century CE. Although sequencing of Bronze Age cattle DNA also suggests there may have been a second integration earlier on in Spain, the DNA also showcases that the Texas Longhorn has small amounts of African cattle DNA. It's likely derived from the African cattle breed, the Dama, because both show higher levels of disease resistance than most other European cattle breeds. The Romanesco cattle tested showed no evidence of Indicus integration. The Brazilian breeds Nelore and Guzarat have been found to have DNA from the Indicus lineage within their ancestry. Although no new integration has been found in the Romanesco, its DNA does contain some level of Indicus lineage, further supporting the African integration hypothesis regarding Southern European breeds. Based on the nature of the genomes of the cattle having that integrates DNA across the genome, due to frequent DNA reshuffling, it is very likely that this integration was mostly ancient in nature, prior to the discovery of the New World. Although some individuals show higher levels of Indicus lineage within their DNA, indicating more recent integrations of Indicus lineage have happened in modern days. So in short, the conclusion is, the primordial form of the New World cattle are of a combination of European and African descent, with later incorporations of other lineages into the mix. Bear in mind, the researcher is covering only 3 different types of meat cattle: the Coronet, the Texas Longhorn, and the Romanesco. Using sampling of Asian cattle as well, specifically breeds outside of India, these studies seem to suggest that outside of India, in countries like China and Japan, most of the lineages of cattle are of hybrid origin, specifically hybrids between the Taurus and Indicus lineages. What the researcher concludes is that the New World cattle breeds, the Texas Longhorn in particular, are reservoirs of a great deal of genetic diversity and can be utilized in the development of new breeds of cattle. Well, that about covers everything. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching this video. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to me on BitChute for a greater variety of content, 4 videos a week. And thank you to all my subscribers on both platforms. I appreciate it.